which is a training session, and we are very on. My names are Edwin Maggio. I'm the community-based community enterprise development manager at Ecotourism Kenya. And once again, I want to welcome all of you. Before we start, I would just like you to just say your name in the chat, the organization that you are working for or you are operating, as well as the place where you are joining us from. So you can just drop that on the chat so that we get to know each other. Then I'll start it off with a brief introduction of our speaker, who is going to take us through today's training. The session will take 2 hours. That is from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. And therefore, feel free to be able to ask any question within the chat. We will also have a Q&A session after a certain period of time during the training. So feel free to ask any question when that time comes. I can see people have already started introducing themselves. Glad to have you, Mercy. We will be having a training session today, and our trainer is Judy Chebet, who will be taking us through various aspects of customer care, which are very valuable to your enterprises. So Judy Chebet is a value chain lead at the E4A Impact, and she has worked with various organizations, mostly conservation organizations, especially in the northern Kenya, to try and uplift the standard of living for the communities within those areas, especially the marginalized communities. So she also has collaborated closely with various entrepreneurs within the Kenya. And then she also fosters innovation and creates solutions with the agri-food value chains by trying to leverage their knowledge when it comes to how they can be able to operate various enterprises. She's very committed to ensuring that community develop in a sustainable way, and she's a driving force behind various initiatives that she has been involved in. She additionally has helped in advancement of both micro, small, medium enterprises, as well as other enterprises within the agricultural value chain, as well as even other sectors. So through her work, she has been able to help uplift the community well-being, and we are hoping that by her giving you knowledge today, you can also be uplifted. So feel free to engage with her through your questions, as well as share your experiences, whether they are success stories or maybe there are things that you haven't done right. So I can still see people introducing themselves within the chat. That is very nice. I want us now to have Judy Chebet take us through the training. She will be taking us through the customer care aspect, which is very valuable when it comes to your enterprises. So the mic is yours, Judy.
Thank you so much, Edwin, for that good introduction. At some point, I was wondering who is that person, because those are so many capes to wear. But that is also what we feel as eco-tourist entrepreneurs or ecopreneurs, or people in the conservation space. So as you've heard, my name is Judy, but I like going by the name Chebet Cheruiyot. I work for IFO Impact Foundation as a value chain lead, and also I've been in the conservation and ecotourism space for some time. So happy to see all of you. Now we are at 21, a good number. And as I was going through the chart, I've seen people from Garendare, Samburu, and Samburu, Nzuki, Recycle Designs, Leopard Hill. So these are some of these names are familiar, so at least I'm at home. So I'll just request if maybe we can turn on our cameras for us to wave as we start, so that I feel like I'm in a class, you know, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
I just want to see your faces for like a second or so. Thank you, Mike Nzuki. Sheila Kutu, thank you. Joy, thank you. The rest I want to assume maybe you are Mary, Mel, Asante Sana. Sawa, that's a good number. Thank you, Petronila, Caroline, Mercy, Chebet, my namesake, I appreciate. Those are enough. I think now we can start. And then feel free, you can always turn your camera, especially if it does not interfere with your connectivity. So I was tasked with the topic of customer care or a great customer experience. And it took me back to the fact that most of our enterprises are actually customer care oriented, you know, because it's a front-facing kind of work that we are doing. And I decided to, maybe we can start with storytelling. If somebody, those who are in the ecotourism, which is all of us, maybe we can have one person tell us about maybe one of the best experience they've had with a client and the worst experience they've had with a client and possible ways in which they decided to solve it. Yes, Jonathan? Yeah. Is it Jonathan Otieno?
I think someone can wave, can raise up your hand.
Can wave, and raise up your hand and just tell us an experience you had with some of the clients, whether it was good or bad, and possible ways in which you decided to solve it. Mike Nzuki, now that I can see you. Yeah. I think you're on mute. Mike, you're on mute. Yeah, okay.
In a business, we normally meet some challenges and we learn through those challenges. Because of the experience we go through trainings, we are able to overcome them. Like maybe I didn't understand correctly the question, at least maybe you can repeat the question so that I can be on the line.
Okay, so I'm asking, now that we are talking about customer care, maybe share with us an experience you had, 2 instances, a good experience and a negative experience that you had with a customer. And then tell us the deliberate steps you took to, to resolve the problem.
Okay, now I understand.
Yeah.
We have 2 different types of customers. We have retail and export. Most challenges we get in export because you are dealing with somebody who you have never met. You just meet in internet and you start the business. There should be a trust. Sometimes we trust and we lose.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go through. So maybe 10 customers, you can get 4 faithful customers, whereby you can export and they can pay the balance, because most of them pays down payment of 30, 50, like that. So you have to trust and risk. So those are some of the challenges. And the other challenges is like you can be given a big order, and then before you finish the big order, like the time of Corona, we lost so much because orders were canceled. Some of them we had to pay back and remain with the products. So we had challenges. There you have to discuss with the customer and agree on something. Maybe you can be delivering few in a month, like that, and then you solve the problem. Those are some of the challenges. And the other challenges is export, because the cost, sometimes it's too high. You are unable to price the product. So those are some of the challenges.
Thank you, Michael. Anybody else who would want to agree or disagree with him before we continue? He has brought up the aspect of delayed payments, pandemic, and the trust issue. I feel like for customer, the first thing that should come into mind is this trust issue. Because sometimes this is a person, if you're meeting online, this is a person, for instance, you're meeting for the first time. So sometimes it is important to do due diligence and to understand where this person is coming from, how long have they been in business. Because as much as internet is one of the main marketing tools that we use, it also has high risks because you can not actually meet that person. So yes, that is one of the points you've gotten. I feel like I just wanted to test the water and understand the kind of group that I'm working with, but I feel like we are on the same page. So Edwin, I don't know if you can share my screen, my presentation.
Yes, you can share.
Okay.
Are you able to share?
Yes, I'm able to share.
Yes, please.
Okay. So let me know if you can see my screen.
We can see it.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about customer experience, customer relationship, and all the aspects that support with the customer bit. So this is just a plain canvas that allows us to understand where the customer falls in. And on my left side, you can see we have customer relationships that has been connected with the love heart. We have the customer segment. We even have key resources on this other side, partners, activities, and the value proposition. At the bottom, we have negative impacts as well as positive impacts. So when you look at all these aspects, you realize that some of these segments that we have, that's our weight than the rest. And the fact that we've connected customer relations with a love heart, it means that it's a personal relationship that the enterprise and the customers need to build. Because as the more you progress, it's more of a trust, and you buy in the trust of the customer such that you'd want this customer to come back the next time and even bring more customers as they come back. So from this sector of the ecotourism, we realize that the community or the enterprises, you're working with the people, you're working with tourist sites, you're working with the cultural areas. So the question would be, how do you get people aware about your product and service? You know, for instance, like Chebet, how would I get people aware of the product that I'm dealing with, a tip for impact or the service? The other question would be, how do you acquire customers and get them to purchase your product? Because there's one thing for somebody to know what you're doing, and there's another for them to make a decision. And I say this most oftenly with school going children. They'll go to school, see maybe a friend or a desk mate with a certain type of biro. Then when they come back home, what do they come and tell us? They'll be, mom or dad, please buy me this biro. At that particular point as a parent, you have the instant, you can make an instant decision and decide whether this is, you're going to buy the biro today, or even wait till December, or even maybe when the schools are closed, or when you get money. So the other thing will also be, how do you keep your customers for a long period of time? Because now that you are in business, we wouldn't want a scenario where we only get one-off customers. So the essence is to have a good customer relationship so that they keep coming. We lock them. And the other thing is also for them to be good ambassadors so that they can share our products and services to other people. The other question at this point will be, how do you sell existing customers more products and services? There are people who initially, when they come, maybe if you're doing apiculture, they'll only be interested maybe in the beehives, maybe for sale. Or let's even start with honey. I've seen we have Suzuki, you're doing honey. So somebody would want maybe to buy honey. But with time, they realize that they can actually venture into that business, and they would even want to have, let's say, like the beehives. So this existing customer, what are some of the other products or services that you'd want them to engage in? So at any one particular time as entrepreneurs, we need to have like a package of what we are selling to the customers, so that we can engage them for long and even ensure that they keep coming back to us. So how do we get customers? How do we get customers? Please note that this is an interactive class. As Chebet Cheruiyot, I do not have a business myself, so I rely on your examples, I rely on the day-to-day activities that you do so that we make this class lively. So how do we get customers? Mercy Onyango.
So just Chebet,
Yes.
they can also share those insights or their experiences in the chat. You know.
Yes, I can see Joy by word of mouth. True. Who else? I think word of mouth is the most common one that we use. For instance, before I started working with Northern Kenya, I just heard of the different conservancies that they have, the different sanctuaries that they have for endangered species, but all that was through word of mouth. But with time, as I continued interacting with that place, I would also come back to Nairobi, Nakuru, and Baringo and sell what I've seen, and vice versa. For instance, most of the people who are in Northern Kenya have never visited Baringo. And so when they reach Baringo and they see a lake, they become so amused. So we also use word of mouth. Email, social media, that is also a good example, especially this generation that we have right now are very tech savvy. So sometimes if you want to print posters, you might not actually get their attention. So what happens is that at least for emails and social media, you are sure at least in a day, the average youth uses their phone close to 80% in a day. So there's no way they are going to miss the social media. For us who are in this corporate world and you who are using emails, there's a way you can have your logo at the bottom, you know? So every time you send a logo to whoever you're sending to, you'll always have your details and maybe the product you're using. Yeah, that's a good example. So how else do we get customers for the first time? Okay, I guess silence means we understand. Okay, somebody else has typed. Posters and flyers. Yes, even posters and flyers work, more so in areas where people have notice boards. And for those who've traveled in airports, you realize that there are so many big screens and posters that every time they just keep turning with different enterprises being advertised, different destination areas being advertised. And we've even seen our own, let me even talk about ecotourism and other government agencies like Brand Kenya. They've taken the notch higher of even advertising Kenya to the world, you know. So the more you interact, you find that people understand about the Kenyan culture before even they reach camp. Somebody's saying sometimes exhibition during World International Days, yes. And we've seen this mostly in the International Conference Center. We've seen this in when you have agricultural shows of Kenya, and nowadays they've brought it down to the county levels. So different counties will come out and try and, you know, outdo other counties. They get their best enterprises in, let's say, tourism, best enterprises in beekeeping, dairy, you know. Then now they invite people, people now travel and they do like a peer-to-peer learning. So those are good ways. The other question will be, yes, you've gotten customers as ecotourism, as a Naibunga, as a Ngarendare. What do you do now to keep the customers? How do you keep these customers to keep coming for a long time? Because remember, as an entrepreneur, you don't only want to get the client once. You want to have them even if it's after every 3 months. Keep them on repeat, you know? So how do you keep these customers for a long period of time? After that, we'll have grow. How do you grow these customers? You just don't want to have, let's say, 5% of, let's say, your county. You want to grow it maybe periodically to 7 or 9%. So how are you going to sell your existing customers more stuff? So the also thing we are noting as we continue is that there's a big difference because between physical channels and mobile channels. I can see there is somebody on the saying emotional activity. Sure. For instance, when we gear towards December or back to school, you realize that different enterprises, especially those dealing with fast-moving goods, like shopping for children, they'll keep saying buy one, get one free, back to school offers, you know, visitors between 8 to 10, you know, first come, first serve, you're going to get this and that. So also the aspect of having a very robust marketing team also comes in handy. So for you to sell your existing products, you have to know who is your clientele. There was a research that was done in Turkana, and they wanted to know between the man and the woman or the household, who has the most buying power in the household. And people definitely thought like it's the father or the mother, but the research showed that it was actually the mother-in-law, because with time, when these communities get like children, the mother-in-law comes to take care of the child, and they're the ones who make a huge decision on the kind of meals and what should be bought in the house. So you also have to know who are you targeting. For instance, when it comes to tourism, we know that our tourists, more so international tourists, would love the culture, you know, the basic sleeping in a manyata, sleeping in a banda, you know, those beautiful bandas that we have. And with time, we realized that more tourist sites are actually moving from permanent structures to semi-permanent structures, not because of what they want, but because of what the customer is trying to get the satisfaction. Because if this customer is going to pay some money, then the experience has to be worth what they want. So you also need to know how you're going to grow your customer. So getting customer, this is the customer funnel channel, you know. So the first one, we have awareness. You just make noise. And I like using the example of COVID. When COVID came, all of a sudden, all social media, all channels, KBC, Citizen, Royal Media, it was even brought down to vernacular language. Everybody was being told, wash your hands, maintain social distance, you know, have a mask. And with time, everybody was aware, regardless. They even used the last mile delivery. Everybody was sure that they are now aware of what needs to be done. So first you create a demand. So like Masai Mara, once in a while, they'll just go out at this particular time and say, it's the 8th wonder of the wild, the Great Migration, the wildebeest migration. They start marketing this from June all the way to September. So first you create the awareness. Then now you create an interest within the target group that you're working with. And also, please, if you have any question, feel free to stop me and even use the chat. So the other thing will be consideration. For instance, you want to take your children for holiday. You just don't wake up one day and say, I'm taking my children to Mombasa. As parents with financial literacy lessons, we plan in advance. So we say this year, life has been a bit tricky, but still, I want to maybe take my children for a holiday. But you don't decide at that particular time. You come up with a time frame, so you consider. And then now finally, if it's a service, you pay. If you're going with, let's say, the Big North, if you're going with the Bonfire, if you're going with Bountiful, if you're going with the travels and tours, now you make the purchase. And these travels and tours have even come up with a way of allowing you to make deposits or come up with a game plan. of working with it. So this is the how you get your customers. So first you create an awareness, then they get interest, then with time they do a consideration, and finally they make a purchase, which now turns into a customer funnel. Another thing that we use mostly, I'm sure all of you use this, for instance, advertising. How many use advertising in their businesses? You can even do by a show of hands. Are we together? Yes, thank you, Jonathan. You use advertising. Then we have public relations. We have trade shows, what you had talked about. We have events. We have webinars, like what I'm doing now, it's webinar. I'm seated in Nairobi, and the participants yourselves, you are in different parts of the country, but we've all been brought together by ecotourism. We even have emails and speeches at conferences. Nowadays, we have something called blogging, where we see lots of young people taking content creation. So for instance, they visit somebody like Mercy Onyango and get to know more about what she does in the restoration space, in the community space, in the ecotourism space. The other one will be, who needs to hear about you? This is what I was talking about initially. A child may come home, being the end user, they want to use the pencil, you know? As a mother, you want your children to be healthy. So instead of sugar, now you start using honey, yeah? So that is where now Mike comes in. Then you have a recommender, somebody who has used it before. Then we also have an economic buyer. This is somebody who can buy maybe in large scale. And finally, the decision maker. So as people or entrepreneurs in the space, we need to target the decision makers. These are people who have now the financial muscles so that they can part with money to buy or visit your enterprise, you know? So you have to come up with a strategy like that at the end of the day will influence the decision makers to actually move money from one area and even come and now make a purchase in your area. So for instance, the Kenya Wildlife Services, they have the 4K Club or the Wildlife Club. So they target the kids, but they know that once they influence the children, they'll be able to convince their parents to support them to visit these areas. And they've even come up with a schedule or even bargained prices that enable children below 18 years. As long as you have a card, you can actually visit any of the wildlife clubs or the conservation or national parks in Kenya. So that is a strategy. But the payments now will be made by the parents or even the school. So they've also targeted the decision makers. So when it comes to getting customers, you have to make the awareness, then create an interest, you know? So you have to ensure that the message is no longer being ignored. Then the other one is consideration. And finally, now you do the purchase. So we are now coming to how do we keep our customers? So we've already gotten our customers. We don't want them to be one-off customers. We want them to keep coming back and also create a good database. So one thing, you have to keep on updating, yeah? Especially when you're in the ecotourism space, you have to keep on updating, you know, the products, you know, at least get a, like a Tuesday, you can decide to get a day during the week and say, Tuesday will be more about the products that we do. And even have maybe one of you, maybe the director or the salesperson, talk about the benefits of the honey that maybe Michael you're using, you know. Is it natural honey? How would you taste it? You know, how is it packaged? Is it attractive enough? Because I've noticed when it comes to honey, it's all about the packaging. So you also have to know what kind of packaging you are using. The other thing will be once in a while, call one of your customers. Let them give you feedback about the product that they use or the service. For instance, Ngarendari, was it easy to maneuver the conservancy, you know? Is it affordable for the local community or the prices are a bit high? Because Ngarendari is also an emerging tourist attraction in Kenya, yeah? Once in a while, you can even do like customer surveys, you know, just do an email. How satisfactory was this product to you? And allow me to stop there because I feel like I've spoken a lot. And I would like maybe 2 or 3 people to tell me some of the ways they use to keep their customers based on the slide that is on the screen. Mary Kimeu, does your business and how you keep your clients? Mary?
Chebet,
Yes?
some are my colleagues.
Okay.
Yeah, they are just following up. Like Mary is
Okay.
one of my colleague.
Okay.
Yes.
So can I go to Caroline Mwangi? Oh, the silence means that we've all used these strategies to keep our customers. You can just show by a thumbs up or a wave, then now I'll be able to move to the next. My mic is not working. Maybe you can type, it's okay, no problem. Just to keep the class interactive and also to know if we are meeting the objective. So what are some of the programs that you've used? Thank you, Eric. Eric agrees with us. Okay, so this is how we keep our customers. You get something like a loyalty program. For instance, do we all know we do visit and collect feedback? Thank you, Joy. You also have to visit and collect feedback because sometimes you cannot see yourself as an entrepreneur. You need to get feedback from the people you're working with. So we also have supermarkets like Carrefour, Naivas. They normally have the loyalty point cards. I don't know if some of you have interacted with it, such that the more you shop, they give you a point for, I think, a shilling. So they give you an anticipation as a customer. Maintenance of quality and new designs you come up with. Thank you, Mike. So you have to be really vibrant, especially if it's a cutthroat competition. You know, the markets are very competitive. So you have to always be on toes. So for the loyalty programs, yeah, you have a card like the Naivas card. So you shop, and December, once in a while, they'll tell you, you can actually redeem your points, you know? So that is how you keep your clients. So when somebody is coming from town and they meet a Quick Mart and they have the Naivas card, chances are almost 90%, even if they want to shop at Quick Mart, they'll just hold forth till they reach their normal Naivas. So at the end of the day, a Naivas has gained a customer, and the customer is also getting some loyalty points, where in December or maybe when things are tight, it will be easier for them to maneuver. The other thing is product updates. I also like what KCB was trying the other day. They actually changed their pay bill for the Vuma account or the Vuma loans that people normally get to 522533. Why was this? Because when you send using that, it's actually free as compared to when you use 522522. However, they've not come out clearly. So people are asking, oh, is this pay bill for what? Please specify and let us know what this new pay bill is all about. So for KCB, they now have to keep on sharing updates. Even if you go to their page now or their Twitter account, they keep sharing and say, we've moved to 522533, but only for the Vuma account, you know? So you have to keep on giving updates. For the customer care satisfaction, you always have to ask from the scale of 1 to 10, do you feel like our products are helpful, healthy, and stuff like that? Then a customer will give you genuine feedback. Initially, when Safaricom came to the market, their cheapest card, who remembers how much their credit card was? Somebody's saying social media engagements to keep customers for sure, especially for women and the beauty products. You have to keep on giving reviews, you know, before and after. If it is makeup, if it is a skincare routine, you have to show before the client started using and after. Ecotourism, you have to show how you've maintained the authentic nature of the area. For instance, you have to work on the waste management, you know, dropping litter. Those are things that you have to work on so that you maintain the authentic nature. I've even visited cultural manyatas where yes, it might be in the middle of the conservancy, but they've maintained the natural state. So regardless of the area, people would still come and associate with with how we used to live before modern times, you know, even their attire, the kind of earrings they have, their beads, like it's so cultural. As much as their designs now are coming to part to the international level, they still maintain their authenticity. Yeah. The other thing will also be customer check-ins. This one most banks would do. They'll call you once in a while just to know if you're okay, if you have a problem. There are even certain banks where if you try to transact, they'll call you to ensure that, hello, Mr. Mike Onzuki, are you the same person who tried to use your card? Because nowadays with fraud, it's very hard to know. And even because it's more of online. So they'll call you to know because they keep track. So all that is part of customer care. The other now would be to grow customers. How do we grow our customers? We've gotten our customers. Now we've kept them. Now we are at a point where we want to grow them. So how do we grow our customers? Now, this is a question I'm posing to the team. How do we grow our customers? Please, you can type. Or somebody can tell us a story of how they started and where they are at this particular time and how their customer base has grown so that we understand. Allow me to pick randomly. Gladness Mwaliko. You can also use the chat. We have Mary, increase marketing efforts, yes. Referrals, thank you, Gladness. Joy says we can grow by diversifying the activities. True. For instance, nowadays in the northern Kenya, there's also the art of rock climbing. That is also one of the income generating activities that the conservation and the northern Kenya has ventured into. We also have cycling. Now more than ever, even in your town, you realize that there's a new crop of people who have taken cycling as a hobby to the next level. They actually meet at a center, and every weekend they decide they are going to cycle maybe for 100 kilometers or 200 kilometers. This is also a way of diversifying our income. And even with time, they formed groups. They are calling themselves a certain name. You know, they've opened a social media account, and some are even attracting donors. So it's a business on its own. So sometimes you have to go the extra mile. And also on the side, they have a CSR, you know, corporate social responsibility. So with time, they would identify maybe a school, they'll identify a hospital, or they'll identify a needy case that despite the fact that it's a hobby, they also support the environment, they support the community. So there's also a social impact. And you can tell in this cycling programs, the rise of women taking part is also increasing. So it shows that they're also breaking like the gender biasness that people had. So with time, it's all about becoming a community. And with time, they'll start an income generating activity. They print merchandise, you know, so they start selling so that they maintain themselves. And if you become a group member of that particular program, with time, the products you get or the cycling routes you do, they become subsidized, but now they have a fee for the newbies or the newcomers that are coming. So that is a way of also increasing. There's also somebody who's saying survey, yes, giving customers a unique experience, make sure you produce the best and unique, true. Airtel compared to Safaricom, so most customers will prefer to use Airtel for that specific reason. I love this example of Safaricom and Airtel because with time, both of them have created a unique experience for themselves. Everyone who has an Airtel line, 99% chances is they have a Safaricom line, but not for making calls, but for M-Pesa. So Safaricom also created their own niche, and they knew they might not be very good when it comes to data or airtime, but they know that with M-Pesa, you know, you can actually get your money from anywhere, channel through your phone. And I've noticed that with time, most people no longer go to the banks. Trips to the banks have reduced, you know, because all the services can be gotten through our phone. So that is how you grow your customers. On the other hand, Airtel, you buy this minutes, free minutes. I don't know if it's 1,000 shillings or 2,000 shillings. Then you talk for free. So at times, people actually have 2 phones for them to maintain. The other thing will be still on Safaricom. When it comes to school-going kids, nowadays, schools no longer accept cash. Why? It was very risky. There used to be increase in theft when kids were going back to school, and a lot of money used to get lost. So nowadays, what Safaricom has done, it has gone a notch higher, not only to keep these customers, but to grow them, and actually curated a whole segment for schools and learning institutions. And I don't know if you've encountered this, but these banks actually have pay bills specifically for certain schools. So kids no longer have to risk. And you don't have to, like if you are in a school or your kid is being chased away from school, they don't have to come home. Sometimes they just have to make a phone call. They don't have to literally take a matatu to come and get the 5,000. They rather stay in school, but as a parent, you just use an M-Pesa. So those are some of the ways we used to for our customers. So for instance, if it's in the conservation field or any community-based enterprise that you're doing, you have to constantly grow your customers. Get referrals, these ones that have already become good clients, ask them to give you referrals. You can also cross-sell, and even you can sell upwards and as we continue. So this unbundling is, for instance, if the product is too complex, you have to split it into several products. For instance, the M-Pesa function, you can use a pay bill, you can do Lipa na M-Pesa, there's Pochi la Biashara, there's also, you can actually buy airtime, you can even deposit the money to the bank. So this is a product, but it has several products that are sorting different needs for different clients. There's also the issue of upselling. For instance, in most areas in the northern Kenya, I realize they have 2 experiences. For instance, we have very high-end lodges which target only international clients, but that does not mean that they don't have local programs for local tourism. We have nature trails, we have bandas. Nowadays, you can actually do like an Airbnb. You can actually cook for yourself in these places. Camping sites, those are some of the ways of unpacking the products that we have to gain more mileage. The other one will be cross-selling. So for instance, if you're buying honey from Zuki and you have small children who have Homa, with time you realize you can also buy like propolis, So you go buying products within that main product. If you're buying, let's say, dairy milk or the dairy product like milk, somebody would want to do yogurt or even add the value and do something like maziwa mala, So you have different products from just the same adjacent products that you're doing, but you now target more clients. The best one is referrals, because word of mouth and recommendation is one of the main strategy that is used to get more clients. Because if people complain, you'd definitely have an issue. Like there was a time Equity had problems and money was disappearing from people's account, and a lot of noise was made, and people would pick this up using social media, spread it out, and now Equity had to be really watertight when it came to their strategies and even their security when it came to their account. So referrals and word of mouth is also important. So you have to focus on the phase you need more. So if you are a starter or you are in the early stage, you need to focus on getting more clients. If you've been in the business for some time, then you need to focus on actually keeping them. Sawa sawa. We together?
Yes.
Thank you. The other thing would be get out of the building. It can be very easy for you to just, sit at your office, sit in Northern Kenya, sit in Samburu. But for you to get more clients, you have to curate a budget for advertising. And that is one thing I've seen, because I've been in this industry for close to like 10 years. And if there's one thing most entrepreneurs ignored, was the budget for marketing and advertising, because they feel like it should be free of charge. They feel like they know somebody who can actually do it, forgetting that these people who are in the marketing and advertising department, they actually have to sit down, design posters, come up with creative ways of enticing the community, and even come up with ways of sourcing new niches or areas where people haven't gotten the gist or understanding. So with time, you realize that you have to curate a budget, get a budget of advertising. It can be once in 2 months, you put up a post, you know. It can be once in 3 months where you do like a radio advert, especially for vernacular language, because the reach is really huge, because there are certain people you're targeting. And also you can even do visits and interviews. For the free trials, we've seen this mainly in supermarkets, where, for instance, chocolate or coffee, they are trying something new. They normally have beautiful ladies dressed in branded t-shirts, you know. They have the coffee, they have a coffee machine, and they just make for you coffee where you try. And as human beings, the moment you've been offered something for free, even if you are told buy one, get one free, automatically you'll be converted to do so. So you find yourself that you become a repeat customer, so it becomes easier. So for the customer segment and the customer relationship, it's tied through something called value proposition. So as long as you are dealing with customers, there must be some value that you're giving them. You can't engage somebody without attaching it to a value, you know? So you have to understand what difference or what unique thing are you going to offer them as opposed to the other person. For instance, Safaricom have known, regardless of what happens, M-Pesa will always be our sale. So they may not get many calls, they may not get many SMSs, they may not get most people buying airtime, but they know at the end of the day, in every 1 minute, close to 1 million Kenyans are transacting on M-Pesa, you know? So that is the value they are getting. When it comes to Airtel, they know at least 85% of Kenyans have Airtel lines for the 3 minutes or the postpaid that they normally buy. So on the screen, we can see customers do not exist to buy your product. Your product exists to serve them. So for you, you must have done a research to identify the gap or the need that the customers need. So at the end of the day, a customer will always get what they need. You may be selling things that are not in line with the customer's needs, so it will be hard for you. So you have to actually be very precise and know what you need. Nowadays, most offices, they allow people to work from home. Not for anything else, not for any other thing, but they realize that you can actually save on costs. Because when you have few staff in the office, you even reduce the number of cups of teas people are taking, you know. Even when it comes to administration, the workload reduces, you know. For instance, even like the cleaning agents, utilities, even when it comes to electricity, water, you know, those expenses go down because the number of people have reduced. So they've even come up with a hybrid program where they allow maybe the first 3 days, a certain percentage of customers or staff would come to the office. And the last few days, a certain percentage would also, so they swap. So you realize that now people are moving away from huge buildings as offices. And now what is picking up more is the co-working space, especially in modern towns like Nairobi. I don't know if people have experienced that, where there's a place where you can go and, like, let's say 1,000, and they give you internet, printing services, water, coffee, you know, and they even allocate for you a small room where you can have meetings with your people, because working from home is not as easy as it seems. Maybe somebody can share with us some of the experiences they encountered when they tried working from home this COVID period in 2020 to 2021. Then we can pick up from there. Kindly. Class, just give us a story in relation to some of the challenges you went through when you thought working from home was easy and exciting. Then with time you realize it's not as easy as it seems. We have Evelyn, Frederick, Susan, Brenda, nice name there, Petronilla. Somebody please volunteer. You don't have to put your camera on, but at least for your voice, that even we help, because it's more of a co-facilitating. Kindly. Ama, you guys have gone for break and you haven't told me. Yes.
So Chebet, I think someone can share the experience. Then at 10:55, we can have a Q&A session for what you have covered.
Yeah.
For 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, we can have a small break of 10 minutes.
Okay.
And then you will proceed with the rest of the presentation.
Sure.
Oh, yes.
Somebody please share an experience before we follow suit what Edwin has.
Hi, good morning.
Morning, Jonathan. Thank you for saving the day.
Okay, I think for me, my experience working at home, at first I thought it would be something easy, but when I found myself in that situation, it was beyond expectation. Expectation was not that good as I thought, because I was having some internet issues, power, the noise, from the neighbor, and also other things. So there's a lot of distraction while you're working from home as compared in the office, and you're working in the office. So I think for me, that is one of the challenges the challenges that I've experienced when working from home.
Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, Jonathan. Sorry. Can we get the perspective of a lady also? Because I also tried working from home and it didn't go as expected. So maybe we can have two experiences for gender inclusivity, then we can compare. Susan, Petronilla, Lynn, Lynette, Evelyn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Petronilla.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was having network problem. Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. I was just asking, maybe you can share with us your experience of working from home, if at all you did during the COVID period, and what are some of the challenges you faced? Because with time, we all realized that working from home was not as exciting as we thought it would be.
Okay. Is for me, okay, working from home.
Before you continue, tell us your business, what you do, so that we understand and we contextualize.
Okay, I'm Petronilla Mugeni, working with the Domestic Tourism Association Kenya, and also a student from University of Nairobi. So for me, working from home had a positive and negative effects. The positive one was unlike going to work with traffic and everything, at least it reduced the cost of going to work and coming back. And the negative effects is that sometimes we experience, if it's an online thing, we experience network problems, and also sometimes if you don't have Wi-Fi, maybe the data are costly, so it's somehow a problem for me.
And as a lady, didn't interfere with your normal day-to-day chores,
Yeah, for sure, it did.
Okay, thank you so much. So for those two experiences, so with time, like Jonathan has said, it sounded exciting, but you realize we are used to a certain way or a certain routine. Then now you get the internet connectivity, when you sit at home, the family does not understand that you're actually working, yeah, because they feel like working, you literally have to move and go somewhere, especially for like tourism and services areas. But with time now, there was also need to actually create time separately. Others notice that they do best maybe in the morning. So people would wake up maybe at 5 in the morning so that by 7, they have time maybe to prepare for the family, then also schedule another time. So it becomes a bit tricky, but we also get lessons learned. And also most organizations noted that you don't need to keep staff from 8 to 5 because some staff need just 4 hours or full concentration for them to execute what in the past would have taken like a whole day. So nowadays, even people are taking remote jobs. For instance, even what I'm doing, in the past, I would have had to come to where you are and even work with Sharon and Edwin, and make us meet in one place so that, there's now the conference issue, there's all that. But on the flip side, we also miss the peer-to-peer learning. We miss the exchange because when there's something about physical presence. So even in your business, you have to keep on adjusting and know possible ways of keeping your customers. Yeah. So Edwin, I think over to you.
Thank you for the presentation, Judy. I want now to invite the participant to ask questions. Kindly ask any question that you might have in relation to the presentation. And you can do that by either posting your question on the chat or just raising up your hand, and then you will be given the opportunity to ask the question. So those who have questions, you can raise your hand or post in the chat. I'm sure you must be having some questions. Kindly feel free to ask any question that you might be having. Or to post it within the chat and I'll read it out.
Please do not hesitate. It's the only way we'll all learn. And there's no right or wrong question. It's more of collaborative and sharing experiences.
So I think, Judy, that was a very nice presentation. There are some things that you mentioned, things to do with the customer having expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And then the manager of the business or the operator of the business are trying to meet those expectations. And therefore, it becomes important that the person who is managing a business tries to understand the customer's expectation and needs. Because when you understand those expectations and needs, it becomes easier for you to provide services that aligns with those expectations and needs. And that is now what is basically customer service or customer care. So that was very nice. Let us have questions.
I guess silence means.
Yeah,
sorry?
Well, if people don't have question, we can proceed for a break of 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to ask the participant not to leave the meeting. We will only have a break of 10 minutes, and then from there, we will proceed with the rest of the presentation. So you can also reserve your questions, and then at the end of the second part of the session, you will be able to ask your question. So feel free to ask any question. Feel free to share your experience, and have a good break. Although short, but have a good one.
Thank you, Edwin. I'll see you at what time should we resume?
Sorry?
What time should we resume?
We will resume 10 minutes from now. That is 11. My phone tells me it is enjoyable, although I know it is short, but I hope you manage to grab maybe a glass of water or some coffee or tea. So we will proceed, but before we do, Chebet, I've just seen some questions in the chat. I don't know whether there are two questions or one is just a question and another one a statement. But we have one question by Joy Namenge, and she's asking, how do you keep an angry customer to make sure they still come back next time? How the question is basically asking you, how do you keep an angry customer and make them to continue coming to get services within your business? So maybe you can answer that.
Okay. So being a service industry, sometimes, most of the times actually, it's really hard to convince and be on everybody's side, you know. So what has helped in the past and what I've seen in the past is that have very clear communications. For instance, have a refund policy, you know, or something, just SOPs, standard operational procedures that people will go by. Make them very clear, put them on your website, put them on your email, you know, let them be on the brochures or the posters. For instance, once you pay a deposit, only a certain amount of money can be refunded. Always anticipate the kind of questions or the needs that the customer may want, you know. So once you have that, it will always be easier for you to use it to safeguard yourself as an enterprise or as an ecotourism enterprise. The other thing would be have very clear communications even with that particular customer, because more often than not, people get angry because they feel like somebody has not either respected them or has not given them the correct service or accorded them the respect that they may want, you know. And even if you see them escalating or raising their voice, you just have to be very stern and request them, maybe if you can step aside and have like a mutual conversation or a one-on-one conversation. And because I know sometimes these clients can feel like they would want to talk to the manager, because sometimes they demean people. If you're not the manager, please request to get the manager and even have that conversation with them. Some may actually cool down, but others, it's also a personality thing, you know. So that's why for tourism and ecotourism or a service industry, it's always good to have written down policies that will support. You may or may not convert this customer to be your duly customer. Sometimes you may have to lose them because they don't want to come to a level, because it's actually a give and take, you know. Yeah. So from your part as an entrepreneur or even your staff, train them to have very direct communication. Let the communication be known in advance. Don't introduce new aspects that the customer was not aware of, because other customers can actually capitalize on that. And nowadays with social media, it's very easy even to take videos, you know, and spread the scenario of or what is happening, and even get a bad publicity of that particular place. So you have to have a sober conversation and understand them from where they are coming from. And if worse comes to us, at times be happy to lose that customer because you will get more, as opposed to having one customer that you have to keep on trying to make happy all this time. Yeah. Somebody says, sorry, my eyes are terrible. John, my question is how to get customers and also how to keep customers. We haven't mentioned about offering good customer service in terms of communication because it plays a vital role in getting and keeping customers. Like I have experienced some customers will come to you just because how you treat them well. Exactly. It's the same thing as I was talking about. It's the personal experience that somebody would want. And remember, these are human beings. So before they become customers, these are human beings with feelings. And sometimes it's just communication. Treat somebody with kindness and they'll repay back. And even with time, you realize you can actually agree to disagree, but not actually be arrogant or angry. Yeah, so you don't have to agree all the time, but just have very clear communication and have them written if need be, especially when it comes to money, because I've noticed most of the time it's more or less about the refund, and we paid for this was not part of the package. So if it's a package, unpack the package explicitly and put everything that is under that package. Don't come with new aspects in the middle or say that was not offered. Let it be very clear, put it on the website, put it on your social media, and even put it on the terms and conditions, because most people would not read, but when now a problem comes, they want to say they were not told. Thank you so much, Abiduna John. That's a good contribution. Another question, Edwin. I think you'll help me read because I'm really struggling. I have an issue with my eyesight.
Sorry, I can see.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether this is a question. Maybe I should seek clarification from Mike Zuki, who says we should learn to understand the taste of our customers. So I don't know whether it's a statement or it's a question. Mike, can you clarify this kindly? Mike, are you there? Mike Zuki?
The test of the product, we learn them through the customers, because you can make a product, but when the customer comes, we'll tell you, I like it, but maybe you can do some changes. That one will be the test of that customer. And maybe the product you have, it's a test of another customer. So that comes, it means that you have to modify something and mix. You maintain the first product. The second one, you can modify it a bit, because some customers have the same taste. Others have a different taste. So to accommodate all the customers, you have to mix. That's what I mean, to understand the taste of the customer. Because some will like, some others will not like. And you want to keep whole.
Thank you,
think,
Michael.
yes.
Sorry?
Thank you for that. Oh, sorry, I'm saying thank you for that. But I feel like for that, we have to be very careful, because sometimes we cannot please all customers, not unless they are willing to pay an extra fee for the adjustment, right? Is that the case, Michael?
Maybe the customer is not buying, but is just giving you an advice. So you can think if it will pay or it will not pay according to your cost. So if it will pay, you can adjust. If it will not pay, you can negotiate. If he or she can add some amount on top to cover the, Yeah,
Michael has brought into aspects. There's the aspect of negotiating. There's the aspect of also way, because you realize in the business, there's always a market for everyone and there's always a product for everyone. So sometimes you have to just pick a niche and just be very specific in what you're doing, you know, so that at any one point you don't have to keep on adjusting based on what a certain customer would want. But if it is specific and if you have the financial muscle, then at that time you can take into consideration. What are the views of, I feel like this is an interesting point that we should all contribute. What are the views of the other entrepreneurs? We've had Michael's view. What are the views of other entrepreneurs? Class? We've seen even in bakers, nowadays we have bakers, and there are times a customer would come with a crazy design and they've given you a very short deadline and they expect you to come up with that design, and even the amount they're giving you is not worth the investment. Because for you to do pricing, you must understand like the break even, you know, what are your direct cost, operational cost, and what's the profit you're going to get. So the first time when it's just like a research, then you are advised to take that route. But the more you get into business, you also have to understand that your time, even as an expertise, and the amount of effort you're putting be directly proportional to the amount of money you're getting, right?
Well, Chebet, I think I also agree with what Mike Nzuki is saying, because he's bringing out the concept of customized services, that if you're a service provider, you need to understand that not all clients will consume the same service. And I'll give an example. For example, if you're operating, let's say a restaurant, and you are offering beef. So when someone is coming to take beef and ugali, for instance, not all of them will require that beef to be cooked or served in a certain way. Some will prefer it to be done differently to others. And therefore, you have to really understand each and every customer so that at least you provide services that are aligned to what that specific customer wants. And I think that is what he was talking about. So can we customize the services to meet the customer's needs?
Yeah. I agree with that, but as we proceed, the customized needs also have to have a premium price, right?
Yes.
Yes, because if you customize without actually working on the pricing, then at the end of the day, you'll realize that you're just unafanya kazi ya kanisa, you know. So they have to go hand in hand with the pricing. And I see this a lot even when it comes to events, you know, baking, getting decor, you know. Let's say you have a wedding. You may have a wedding, different weddings, but the branding is different because the customized needs you need has to come with a cost implication. The moment you find yourself as a business person, you are not looking into the cost implication, then you're going to eat into your profits because you've taken more time and effort to actually give this customer a different experience or a unique experience at the same price that you'd have done for your normal bread and butter. So this is also a thing that I've realized with most entrepreneurs. Sometimes we go out of our way without attaching the financial aspect, you know. So we end up eating into our own profits. And with time, we realize we can't be on business or we can't be in business. So we have to be very careful as much as we are tailor making it, also ensure that there's a premium fee, just an extra fee that can accommodate, you know, your expertise, the time you've taken, even the man hours you've taken and the utilities that you've used. Sawa. Oh, thank you. So
there is another question. Okay, let's look at this and then we will proceed. So
No
Douglas is
problem.
asking,
Mhm.
for tour companies, how do you keep customer with exaggerated expectations on a certain destination stroke hotel you are selling, and you end up not meeting those expectations?
Thank you, Douglas. This is a very common question, more so in the service industry, not only the tours, but any service industry. Somebody will share a picture that is full of filters, that has been edited. It's not actually the real thing. So you entice people, maybe you hype the area. Then when they come to the ground, inakuwa ile ya kwa ground vitu ni tofauti. What we've come to learn from best practices, sometimes it's good to be very authentic because people love authenticity, Just take a picture for what it is, yeah? Because also these same people will do a review on these pages, and social media is crazy. And they may actually tarnish your name to the other interested tourists that would have loved to visit your area. So for this, what we've learned, just do a very legit website with the original pictures. People appreciate original pictures. And nowadays, people love the local context, So whatever pictures you're taking, make sure it's the real pictures, and even give credit to the people who are in the photos, the models. There's also something called a consent form, so that even if they trace it back, they can actually trace it to the origin. So do legit pictures, and also understand why would you want to give a false impression of the place. Could it be maybe you are exaggerating the services that you can offer? Yeah. Because even a place like the Nairobi National Park, sometimes when you do the game drive, you may or may not see the animals, but that does not mean it's the fault of the park. Yet you've paid your entrance fee, you've taken your time. You can even spend like 3 hours. That's why they give you feedback and tell you the best time to come is very early in the morning, because only then can you see the animals. So I feel like in this service industry, honesty will take you places. Be very honest and be very legit. Take legit pictures, own the pictures of the place. Don't take pictures for a different, let's say, lodge, and then impose it on a place where when people come, then now the feedback is very negative. Sawa. And maybe somebody can also contribute. For those who've traveled to hyped places only to realize that it's nothing close to what the brochure was talking about. Maybe you can let us know how you handle that experience. This one for Eric, the young upcoming ecotourism community-based. Yes, I also like what Njoki has said. Tour companies need to limit guest expectation, allow them to have space for formulating their own experience. It is true, because it's a personal experience, and we don't know what parameters we can use because it's a personal experience. That's why it's unique. That's why it's different. There are people who just love long safaris without actually seeing animals, but they appreciate the time they've taken to see the landscape, the vegetation, even interact with the people. And there are people who would also want to now maybe go and swim and even maybe keep off from this, the busy life of Nairobi, They'd want to sleep under the, do you call them starbeds, Either they want to camp, they want the real, legit, authentic experience. That's why they are moving from the modern hotels to go to those areas. So sometimes let that person be, so that when they tell about the story, it is something that they'll always carry. Travel is all about the experience. Sometimes it's not something you can put on paper, but it's a feeling that you got when you just travel. So it's a bit abstract, but let people experience for themselves. So I agree with what Niki has said. Thank you, Jonathan. Eric, community-based organizations sometimes face very steep competition from already existing ones. What would be advisors for the young upcoming ecotourism entrepreneurs? Wow, this is a tough question, but I feel like that's something that is faced by most businesses, because the old ones have been in the game for some time, they understand the ropes, they feel like the space is a bit tight. So for the young ones, based on my experience, I'd advise you to get a mentor within that space. You know, sometimes it's easier to grow through a partnership or a merger. You know, get a mentor who periodically you'll be able to understand the systems of that particular area and the thematic area and how it works. With time, even you realize you don't have to start your own. You can actually just be part of the value chain. Maybe you can decide to be an agent, do referrals, get your commissions. There's always a way that you can just balance. The other thing would be try and be very unique, because the only reason why the others would want to chase you out of the market is if maybe your competition is very high. So you have to have a very unique, distinct feature that keeps you separate from the rest. We can see something like, let's talk about even KFC and the normal chicken inn. KFC would only sell chicken and chips only, you know, they've not ventured into fish, they've not ventured into beef meat, they've not ventured into, you know, and their chicken have a specific way in which they are made. Even if you go to a different KFC in another country, the standards are the same. So your branding also have to be very, you know, top notch, so that even if the competition is stiff, you have your own unique separator or an identifier that sets you apart from the rest. Yeah, because competition has always been there, but it's just about the uniqueness and now the physical and the experience and the customer care service that you share with people, so that people would now want to say, I want to go back to Ilingwesi, I want to go back to Ngarendare because of 1, 2, 3. So you have to get a mentor, have conversations. It's going to be tight, but also resilience pays. If there's one thing I've learned about entrepreneurs, you have to be very resilient. It's the only way out. Yeah.
Chebet, I can see some more comments in the chat, but for the interest of time, you can proceed, and then the participants can continue posting their comments as well as the question, and we will be looking at them at the end of the session.
Thank you. Just as I close with these questions, I want to take what Jonathan has said. Different clients, different experiences, expectation, all in, you can never impress all of them. It's true. You have to know how far you can go. Otherwise, every day you have to keep on changing to suit the people. So you just have to have your unique identifier and the unique value propositioning offering. Thank you. That was a good engagement. I don't know why So as we now finish, because I can see we have like 30 minutes, I would just like to share and say that a customer is somebody who pays for your product. A user does not. And more so in the service industry, we have lots of users, people you know, your friends, your family. Just because you work somewhere, you feel like you need to impress them, but you forget that that is a service that otherwise somebody else would have paid. So you have to know the specific customer that you are working with. And this is what Jonathan had said, but now in my words, you can't design, build, and position a product for everyone. So it's in line with your thinking as well. However, you build a mainstream product, but have a specific customer in mind. So you can have two aspects. You can have the business to consumer and the business to business. Business to consumer, mostly in the community-based enterprises, will be for individuals, while for business to business will be maybe from a school, an institution, purchasing from you directly. So there we have now the B2B and the B2C. So in our own different businesses, we have to know which are our target clients that you are working with. For others, it's easier to work with larger organizations, especially if you have systems and controls. It's easier to work with a larger organization. But if you are a startup, you start first with at least the business to consumer. So you must know, how do they buy? Where do they buy? What influences them, you know? Do they buy directly or somebody is buying for them? Like for instance, our youth nowadays, everyone has a smartphone and it's the parents who are buying, but they are being influenced by their peers, you know? So there's the issue of peers. Peers are influencing other peers to say what they want. The other thing would also be the segment. Your market and the customers that you're targeting are very different. Others are based on age. Like from above 40, let me speak for the women because I identify with them. Your health now becomes very important. You know, you have to take vitamins, you have to take reproductive pills, you know, something just to support you to avoid even the aging factor. When it comes to geographic, you must know, is your product international, regional, national, or local? So if you're targeting international clients, also the standards of that product has to be a bit high so that it can compete with other products from other areas. If it's regional, what's the identifying factor? For instance, I know honey from Samburu is very different because of the type of trees that are there as compared to the ones from West Pokot and Baringo. So you must have the unifying factor. When it comes to behavior, we've seen something like Tuskys. Nowadays, they have a whole department of takeaway food because they've noticed most people who are still single would prefer to do takeaway food as opposed to the actual cooking. So that is more about the behavior or the patterns that is happening. At this time during the cold season, most people are buying heaters, the electric heaters, regardless of the high electricity bill. But they know every July, the heater sales will go up because the cold season is very tricky. Even for the psychographics, it's more about the personality and the value. And I'll still use the example of Airtel and Safaricom. Some people are Safaricom die fans because of what they feel. Others would want to use a Samsung. Others would never use another phone other than, let's say, an iPhone, you know, because that is just what they love and that is their preference and their attitude. So for your profile, for you to understand your customer and give them the best customer experience, you must understand their gains, their pains. What would they want? You know, like Njoki had said, let them experience for their own selves. What is their age? You know, what income are they getting? If they're coming from middle class, they can actually purchase most of the things, you know. But if they are still below middle class, there are certain experiences they cannot afford because at this time those are luxuries because they still need to take care of their basic needs. So you must know the customer profile, priority of the product, you know, and also the geographical area. So for instance, for the B2B, you must know the need, the industry and the size of the community, relevance, and also the percentage of the cost that you're working with. So for you to have key successes for customer satisfaction, you have to understand the technical functionality. Whatever product or service you're giving them, is it meeting their needs? For instance, if it's honey, can they use it for tea? Can they use it as a health product, you know? Because nowadays people are moving from sugar to honey. Is it priced or is it priced in such a way that people can afford, you know? When it comes to flexibility, is it something that they can be able to adjust? Customization is what you were talking about in the previous session. And then Zuki brought this up and also Edwin supported. Sometimes you have to customize, yeah? For instance, we have these trucks, school trucks, you know, for the kids for PE. People have actually taken plain clothes, but now they give them badges with a certain name for a certain house. Maybe it's the elephant house, it's the lion house. So you customize for it to suit that. And also aesthetic expectation. Why would you want to go for a trip to, let's say, Northern Kenya? Why would you want to use Samsung to capture the pictures, you know? What is the story you are trying to tell, you know? What is the expectation that is being met, you know? Why would you want to go to Mombasa as compared to Naivasha? What kind of expectations are those that you'd want to experience? We've seen this in December. Most family will still go to Mombasa regardless of how packed it is. What kind of expectation or their aesthetic feeling would they want to get? So those are some of the things that we have to unpack as business people for us to understand whether our customers are satisfied. And with time, you realize now more customers are actually doing their holiday trips either in April or August. Why? Because they realized in December, the prices are high and also it's a bit crowded, right? I don't know if you felt that based on the businesses that you do. And just type a hi so that I know if we are together. So we have a true. Yes, John, it's true. Thank you. So when it comes to successful customer care, you must know what the customer wants. Analyze the demand. Also analyze how the competition is. Who are the main competitors? And how are you going to work with them? And also the other thing, what are the main dimensions of your competitors? What are your competitors doing differently? I like telling or sharing the story of honey because I realized honey you can have, when you go to the supermarket and visit the honey aisle, you'll notice that you can have 1 kgs that range from 600 all the way to 2,000. It may be the same honey, but the branding is different, you know? The type of container used is different. People would use plastic, others would use glass, you know? Others would even go ahead and put an African touch when they're targeting international clients. So you must also know the kind of competition that you're dealing with. The other thing is you must identify the success factors because you cannot only focus on clients. You also must consider the competition and who are responding to the same need. So for honey, it's a very cutthroat competition because there are those who just sell the honey, but they've not branded it well. And you see, for a customer, it is what their eyes see. So first, they are impressed by what they see. Sorry? Is there somebody asking a question?
No.
Oh, okay. So the other thing you must also understand when it comes to the segment, you must know what segment you're dealing with. Are you selling to a school or a hospital, or is this just for retail? Because the needs of retail is for day-to-day use, you know? But now when you come to B2B, like other businesses, maybe a hotel or a hospital, even the quantity goes high, the frequency also goes up, and also you have to have a good product, because now this product would be used by many people who would give feedback the hotel, and they would say, maybe we don't like this honey, maybe you can try a different kind of honey and stuff like that. So depending on the kind of client you're working with, you must know what that you're selling. So when it comes to the other thing is your market. Is your product or service able to support a mass market? There are people who start so well, then when it reaches a point, the demand becomes so high that they cannot supply. And some of the strategies that we've seen that have been used to cater for this is people tend to form small groups of smallholder farmers or even join a cooperative. Not for anything else, but just to be in a position where they can provide a consistent supply of the product that they are dealing with. Yeah. And I can tell from Zuki's testimonial in the morning, he's dealing with regional and national markets because he was talking about exports. So that brings me to my second point. You must know the type of market you're dealing with. Is it local? Is it regional, national, or international? So you must know how to move and move from one place to another. If it's a mass market, it means it's a large group of consumers, you know. Sometimes they really don't care about the specifics. They may even want you to sell for them the product without branding it, because they have the intention of going to rebrand and sell it to another smaller market, which now is a niche market. The other thing would be something like the wide variety of people. So like just a supermarket, you just go and buy your product and go home. Also, your desire may be different for this particular product, and often competition is fierce but easy to manage. For instance, the fast-moving goods like soaps, cooking oil, you know, sometimes people buy not because they want this particular type of product, but because it is affordable. Nowadays, with the high cost of living, most guys would even buy cooking oil, the cheapest one, not because they like it, but because they know it will just serve the same purpose. So that is all for the mass market. But now when it comes to a niche market, they have a certain specific needs and requirements that they need to be addressed. And at this point, let me take an example of like school-going children. Sometimes they want to take milk to school, maybe the spread, they call it spread. So for milk, most people would take UHT. So Brookside, UHT, Molo milk, the one that can stay is up to 90 days. So this is a particular kind of market. But for us who do like the day-to-day subsistent consumption, we even buy like the one that the ATM one, you know, you just go with your own bottle, get your own milk and move on, because your need is very different and the target client is very different. You just want it to use it for the day-to-day. But for a high school student, they may want to stay with it like for the whole term. So automatically there, the market changes. Either it fits into the niche market or the mass market. Are we together? Edwin?
Yes,
Are we together?
yes, we are totally together.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I can see on the chat as well. So when you introduce the product to your customers, there are those people who will adopt them early, you know? Like I'm sure in this group, we have people who have their telephone numbers are 0722. Those are guys who, when Safaricom just introduced the lines and the mobile phones, they were the early adopters, you know? And these are people who, they don't wait for a long time before they try these new products. So your sole job as an entrepreneur should be able to find and target the early adopters who are very bold and courageous, you know. The first time when we got internet, people never wanted in their homes, and we used to stereotype and profile the ones who have internet and say they are very rich, or, you know, we used to go to the cybers. If you want to send a mail, you have to go to the cyber. But when COVID happened, we actually realized that it's a requirement, especially if you are in this industry where you have to communicate, you have to research, you have to do meetings. It actually turned from being a prestigious want into a basic need. But for us now, we can say we are the late majority because we didn't pick it up, but there are those who were early adopters. They picked it up and moved on with it very fast and even made money and even opened cybers. Then with time, people started understanding about it, then they joined. Then we have us who had to wait for something like a pandemic for us to realize that, oh, actually having internet is not just a secondary need, but it's a basic one for you to achieve your day-to-day deliverables in life. So customers who are willing and are able to take a risk on a new product, they know that there has to be a problem or a need. So the job has to be done. And also they are aware that they have a problem, you know. There's also the need of a power bank. Why people started using power bank is because they realized with time that the mobile phones couldn't keep a lot of power for a long time. Most of the ones in businesses, yet they have to keep on using their phones for calls, for emails and whatnot. But they realize you can actually work with it, even in areas where there's no power, you can actually use it. So there's also need to actually actively look for a solution. The customer is searching for a solution and has a timetable for finding it. The other thing is that also you have to put together the solution out of piece parts. So first, there was the fixed mobile landline. You have to wait till you get home for you to make a call. The innovators came up with a mobile phone. Fine, now there's a mobile phone, but it can't stay with power for so long. So there's also the need to have a power bank. Then with time, you have to print maybe MOUs, contracts and whatnot. Then you realize you have to have your own printer. Either you use it at the cyber or have one at your own place. So with time, you have a complete set of cycle that you can actually use as you move on. Then at the end of it all, you must have a budget. All these things cannot exist in isolation. You must have a budget that will support all this part of what you're doing, you know. So you must have a printing machine. If it's a honey industry or the apiculture, you must know where to get the containers for packaging. Yeah, where are you printing your branding material? Who has designed for you the logo? Is it clear? Does it tell the story of where you're coming from? Because nowadays people would love to buy things they understand where they are coming from. So if it's honey, people are required to have a small portion where they can tell a story of this honey is supporting maybe women and youth in, let's say, West Pokot, you know, just for traceability purposes. Because as we advance, people would want to know whatever they are consuming, where is it coming from? Is it legit? Is it certified? So you must have a budget that will facilitate all that. Who could be your early adopters in your business? The first people who came to take part in your business and even buy, how could you reach them? Or how did you reach them? As it was family, as it was a word of mouth, you know, you try something, then with time you realize that, oh, it can actually work, you know, then the demands becomes high, then you realize you have to look for your friend or other farmers, then you form a group where now you work together. Okay, thank you. Then you work together. So at the end of the day, you ensure that you have consistent supply of whatever it is that you're doing. So, and I've seen this mostly in Northern Kenya, where people are in small groups, you know, or an association, especially when it comes to tourism, so that they encourage tourists. Once you've reached like Kipia, there's no need for you to finish with your trip or come back before you've done an Isiolo trip. Once you reach Isiolo, you realize it's easier for you to reach Samburu, Archer's Post, you know. So it's a whole circuit where now they've come together to market, you know, their sites, their landscape, the products that they have, and also to create a whole community where now they can work together. Any question up to there? Question? So as I wind up, you need to understand the product market fit. For you to get a customer, you need to understand it, because customers don't care about your solution, they care about their problems. So are you sorting them? And as I finish, this is the last aspect. I'm going to share a story or an analogy. When free primary education came, it was very easy for people to take kids, even those who are not going to school. And we saw there was an outburst of classrooms, you know, teachers, and there was a strain even when it came to teachers and the resources, you know. Initially, it was very exciting, but with time, one teacher couldn't take care of, let's say, 100 students. Even to date, there's still a problem. And there was a group of parents, or there is a group of parents who feel like their kids should get specialized education and even services. So what happened? Administrators who could support, who could work with this, decided to come up with academies. And I'm sure most of you, even in this meeting or in this training, most of your students or your children are in academies, not because of anything else, but because you know that the quality of education is high, and also the teacher to student ratio is commendable. You know, they can get their attention, they can get their services, and they can be able to fit in the society as we progress. So sometimes the customer does not really care about your solution, they only care about their problem. So they want to know whether you will sort them. Will their needs be sorted, you know? Will their wants be sorted? So sometimes you have to analyze and make sure that whatever product or service you are offering to the market, it actually has a product market fit, which can actually lock in like a jigsaw, so that you have the solution, and then whatever problems they have, they are actually being sorted. So I think that is the end of my customer care experience and how to retain customers training today. So I'm going to hand over to Edwin to facilitate the last section for any question and answer as we finish. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that wonderful and valuable presentation, Chebet. Now we want to proceed to Q&A session. So any participant who has a question, you can just raise up your hand, and then we will give you an opportunity to be able to ask the question. Alternatively, you can also share your question in the chat, and then I'll take time to read it and Chebet will answer it. So feel free to ask any question with regards to what Chebet has taken you through. You can also share your comments about the presentation. You can also share your comments about customer service in general and what you think. So feel free to share. I can see Gladness. She says, thank you so much, Madam Chebet. There is Patronila Nyango, thank you. It was such a great presentation. We appreciate that. Can see Jonathan. That was a nice session, Madam Chebet. I'm impressed and inspired. That is very nice. It's always very nice to see such comments. It means that this session was really valuable to all of you. The presentation was interactive and insightful. Yes, I agree. We can as well have questions. We can as well have questions so that as I even read this, Chebet can be looking at the question. Thank you, Madam. I learned a lot. We are glad you've learned a lot. Caroline says, thank you. Your content was relevant and easy to follow and understand. That is nice. Ezekiel is saying, thanks. Awesome and amazing knowledge in our business. That is very true. Denise as well, thank you. Very engaging and informative. That is nice. Do we have any question aside from comments? Yes, there is a hand up. Frederick, go ahead, please, and ask your question.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
To you.
It's morning.
Oh yeah, it's still morning, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chebet. I have a question. As an upcoming and a startup company, which advertisement channels would you recommend for startups and still a growing company?
With advertising for a startup?
Yeah, or just already in the growing stage. Yeah, growing stage. Because we know definitely. Yeah.
Sorry, no, just finish.
Saying because for a growing company, maybe the budget, finance would be definitely a challenge. Now, which advertisements channels would you really recommend?
So for a growing company, the most recommended advertising channels would come through, let's say, word of mouth, because first you have to start with your friends and family. Then from there, you also request them now to give their friends and other family, they spread it maybe through WhatsApp, right? Because if I use a product, I can actually share it with my friends just for recommendation. And it's normally also a good strategy, because through that, you'll get different recommendations at that particular point where now you can enhance and make your product or service better. So social media is highly encouraged, word of mouth is highly encouraged, and even use forums like maybe church, chamas, or church, chamas, and any small gathering that you get before now you go full blast. For instance, at Info Impact, we normally have working days where we invite entrepreneurs to come and showcase some of the products they have, because we've also learned that when it comes to peer-to-peer learning, more entrepreneurs learn more from each other as opposed to when they are just thrust into the market without understanding. So also have a mentor, have somebody who's done it before. So that is the essence of having a coach and a mentor, somebody who's been in the space and they've gone through the same cycle, so that they kind of guide you and let you know that you don't have to start paying fast for advertising, but use the somehow long-hanging fruits, word of mouth, social media, WhatsApp status, Instagram, yeah, before now you advance. Yeah, those are the things I would recommend. For social media marketing, somebody is asking, what do you recommend about using influencers? I think influencers are very targeted. So depending on the clientele that you want, it may be good to use an influencer. So For instance, when it comes to tourism and maybe opening up the north of Kenya, sometimes it's good to get somebody who people know and they follow their content. And this does not necessarily mean that people would want to visit there, but first they'll be aware that there are hidden gems and places where we can visit in northern Kenya. So first, you've created their awareness. Then second, when they come to deliberation or areas where they would want to visit, they now move from Naivasha, Mombasa, they'll have a third option of northern Kenya. And these are people who have like social media. This age of ours nowadays, people are into YouTubes, social media. So they'll even take time and want to understand, you know. There's the Crying Rock in Kakamega. You don't have to go to Mombasa for maybe swimming. You can try maybe Ngarendare. There's a natural blue pool, you know, things like those. So you can use an expert depending on the clientele that you want to target. But sometimes I want you to note that it does not guarantee that you'll get automatic sales. It's a step-by-step process. The sales may not be immediately, but it may take time because now people are aware that there's a place. Then now they start creating interest. I don't know if I've answered your question, Frederick, and there's somebody on the chat here. Douglas.
There are some questions, Chebet. There is another one from Joki Kinywa, and she says, or rather she's asking, the customers to guest is always right. How do you deal with the situation when the guest is not right? Or how do you handle that?
So this one I'd want to tie it up with the earlier one where somebody has asked, Joy had asked about an angry customer. Always have like standard operating procedures that are written, because they say if something was not written, it never happened. So you must always have like SOPs or just guidelines, especially in a service industry. Yeah, where when it comes to now the confrontation, you'll always pull up evidence, you know, because sometimes I feel like customers can just decide to be a bit, you know, difficult. Because for instance, when we use like SGR, when we use a plane, when you're going to the bank, you know very well that the bank on Saturdays closes, let's say at 12. That one has always been there. But why do we know that? Because they've put a poster outside, you know. Even when they send you a message, they say the bank is open on Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And on Saturday and Sunday, on Saturday from this time, Sunday it is closed. So we actually understand and we've wired it in our brains to know that there's no way you can go to the bank on Sunday. So why, when it comes to our businesses, it becomes for customers to understand, because we've given them an open forum for them to put us in a corner. So always have whatever instructions you have, communicate on the first instance, you know, don't introduce them, don't introduce new aspects in the middle of a negotiation. Always have them upfront. If it's booking, you have to say book maybe 2 weeks in advance. After that, the refund is 50%. Have it in writing and have a place where they consent, you know, because that is the only way we can survive in business. Because when it comes to paying flights and all those other things, we agree. And even when, you know, when we get late, you have to pay maybe half a price or even a new ticket. So that is easier for us to understand. But when it comes to our level, we want to be hard on our own entrepreneurs. So I feel like always have your documentation right and let them consent and keep on sending updates, send messages. You can even subscribe to these cheap SMSs where it's 1 shilling per message. And maybe from week to week, you send reminders to your clients so that at any one point, you did your part as an entrepreneur, but now the fault will be on their side. And communicate well, yeah, because it's all about customer service. You can agree to disagree, but communicate well, be respectful, have the documentation right. Thank you, Michael.
Well, I hope that is clear. Any other question? I can see Mike as well as Caroline. They are asking about whether they can get copy of the presentation or the notes. Yes, we will be uploading this presentation on our YouTube channel, Ecotourism Kenya. So you can go there and watch the presentation. and then just remind yourself the week. At the end of the week, once we have had all the presentation. So be patient with us until then. Do we have any other question? Or maybe you want to give a comment, an experience with customer service, either success story or a failure. You are welcome to say something, either verbally or you can write in the chat. So Chebet is thanking all of you. It has been great having all of you. By extension as well, I'm also thanking everybody for joining the meeting. I'm now assuming we don't have any further question nor comment. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you for joining the meeting. The training is going on until the end of the week. We will be having the training from 10 a.m. to 12 noon from tomorrow until Friday on the topics that we shared with all of you. So we are looking forward to having you join us for the rest of the sessions. And feel free to ask questions during the sessions. Feel free to interact with us. Feel free to share your experiences as well as your insights. And we will be pleased to answer the question as well as have a look at all those experiences. Now, before we end the session and wait for tomorrow, I would just want us to have a photo session with all of you. So I would ask everybody to maybe switch on their camera so that we have a photo session. So kindly put on your camera. Yes, I can see Caroline, Lawrence, that is very nice. It's nice seeing your faces. We can meet on the street and we can say hi to each other. Yes, Shayla is there, Ezekiel, Patronila, Gladness, wow. Lynette is there, Joy, Joki Kinywa. We need more people. Eric Sang is there. Eric was my classmate. Good to have you here. Where is other people? Where are other people? Yes, Abiduna, that is nice. Mary, Douglas, Dennis, Evelyn, very nice. Jonathan, would like to see you. It would be great to see you. Tandena as well. Lawrence, great. Dennis Kibwa, Lawrence Lepau. Yes. So great seeing all of you. You can just wave, no? Just say hi and wave. Great. Now I know we are together. Yeah. So we have taken the photo. We appreciate so much having Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I hope you found this session very make a difference in your business. So I have a favorite quote that I will end the session, and it relates so well with what has been covered today. So it's a quote by Mahatma Gandhi, and it says, "A customer is the most important visitor on our premises. He is not dependent on us. We are dependent on him. Then it continues and says, he is not an interruption in our work. He is the purpose of it. And then it says, he is not an outsider in our business. He is part of it. We are not doing him a favor by serving him. He's doing us a favor by giving us an opportunity to do so. So that wraps up everything that Chebet has been talking about, that a customer is an important person for your business. He's the reason why your business exists. And therefore, if you want to grow, you have to make that customer happy. And that is basically what Chebet has been taking you through, how you can be able to make this customer happy and even get more customers so that the business can grow. So with that said, unless someone has a question or comment, feel free to say, but I would wish now to end today's meeting. And once again, I thank all of you for joining us, and we look forward to having you tomorrow and the rest of the days. If we don't have a question, then enjoy the rest of your day and looking forward to having you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Igual, no,